wear this tonight, Master.
More than half a century ago, I dream of Jeannie enchanted America with its laughter and magic. But once the spotlight faded, the cast's real lives took shocking turns. Some were destroyed by cancer, some died quietly with no one knowing, some were suffocated by painful marriages, and others unexpectedly became millionaires. Get ready, because what you're about to see will make you realize you can't recognize them anymore. Barbara Eden as Jeannie. Barbara Eden was born on August 23, 1931 in Tucson, Arizona. At 34 years old, she played Jeannie, the enchanting, impulsive Jeannie who transformed astronaut Tony Nelson's life, in I Dream of Jeannie, 1965 to 1970. The role made her an instant television icon, adored for her charm and innocence, even as her personal world quietly unraveled behind the scenes. Her marriage to actor Michael Ansara began in 1958, but success only intensified their fractures. Ansara's worsening alcoholism and episodes of violence left Eden living in a constant state of fear and emotional exhaustion, struggling to balance her rising fame with a home filled with conflict. The strain affected her career long after the show ended. Offers became limited, typecasting closed doors, and she fought hard to reclaim dramatic roles, eventually proving her range in Harper Valley PTA, 1978, as she tried to rebuild both her life and identity. The emotional toll deepened after their divorce in 1974. Her second marriage to Charles Fegert brought even more turmoil. His infidelity and controlling behavior pushed her into depression and forced her to confront the loneliness hidden beneath her public smile. The greatest blow came in 2001, when her only son, Matthew, died from a heroin overdose at 35. The grief nearly broke her. She described the period as a darkness I didn't think I would survive. Today, Barbara Eden is 94 years old and living peacefully in Palm Springs, California with her third husband, architect John Eichholz, whose steady presence has brought her long-needed stability. She continues to appear at conventions, charity events, and occasional stage readings, embracing a quieter life shaped by resilience rather than tragedy. Her estimated net worth of $10 million comes from decades of work, residuals from Jeannie, and long-term real estate investments. Larry Hagman as Major Anthony Nelson. Larry Hagman was born on September 21, 1931, in Fort Worth, Texas. At 34 years old, he played Major Anthony Nelson, the disciplined, clean-cut Air Force astronaut whose life is turned upside down by a mischievous Jeannie, in A Dream of Jeannie, 1965 to 1970. His chemistry with Barbara Eden helped turn the series into one of NBC's most recognizable comedies of the decade, even as his real life was moving in a far darker direction. His marriage to Maj Axelson, which began in 1954, was strained almost from the start. Hagman openly admitted to frequent affairs, leaving Maj humiliated and heartbroken as she tried to hold their home together while he chased work on stage and television. The constant tension followed him onto the set of I Dream of Jeannie. His drinking escalated, arguments with producer Sidney Sheldon intensified, and he occasionally jeopardized his role with bursts of anger and instability. The fracture in his marriage deepened during his rise on Dallas, where portraying the ruthless J.R. Ewing became easier as his private life slipped further into emotional distance and guilt. By the 1990s, the decades of stress, alcohol abuse, and unresolved turmoil took a catastrophic physical toll. Hagman collapsed into life-threatening liver disease, requiring an emergency transplant in 1995 after years of cirrhosis and liver cancer brought on largely by heavy drinking. Even after the procedure saved his life, new battles followed: throat cancer, recurring infections, and finally acute myeloid leukemia. Yet he continued acting with fierce determination, returning to Dallas in 2012, even as his body weakened. Sadly, Larry Hagman died on November 23, 2012, at age 81, passing peacefully in Dallas with his family around him. His ashes were scattered in a private ceremony, honoring his wish for a quiet farewell. At the time of his death, his net worth was estimated at $30 million, a fortune built on Dallas, decades of television work. Bill Daly as Major Roger Healy. Bill Daly was born on August 30th, 1927 in Des Moines, Iowa. At 38 years old, he played Major Roger Healy, the mischievous, quick-witted best friend and fellow astronaut to Tony Nelson, in I Dream of Jeannie, 1965 to 1970. His cheerful energy made Healy the comic heartbeat of the series, even as Daly himself quietly battled personal difficulties. His first marriage to Patricia Anderson lasted from 1949 until 1976, but years of constant travel, late-night comedy work, and relentless TV commitments pushed them into a cycle of distance and resentment. Adopting 2 children brought temporary calm, yet the pressure of providing for a young family while living on studio schedules fractured their bond. Daly's mounting anxiety intensified during and after I Dream of Jeannie, making him withdraw emotionally at home. The failure of his second and third marriages, first to Gwynedd West and then to Cynthia Daly, followed the same painful pattern. Long hours, career insecurity, and a man too overwhelmed by expectations to be fully present with the people who loved him. His fourth marriage to Rebecca Duemler in 1993 gave him a period of stability, but grief soon returned when his daughter Kimberly died young, a loss that devastated him and deepened his lifelong struggle with depression. This grief bled into his work after the Bob Newhart Show. Despite earning an Emmy nomination and national recognition as Howard Borden, he felt overshadowed and undervalued, convinced he would always be a supporting act rather than a star. As anxiety worsened, he turned down larger roles, stepped away from Hollywood, and gradually retreated from public life. Finally, Bill Daly died of natural causes on September 4, 2018, at age 91 in Santa Fe, New Mexico. His ashes were scattered nearby in a private family ceremony. At the time of his passing, his net worth was estimated at $10 million, earned from a lifetime of sitcoms, game shows, and touring comedy. Emiline Henry as Amanda Bellows. Emiline Henry was born on November 1, 1928 in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. At 38 years old, she joined I Dream of Jeannie in 1966, playing Amanda Bellows, the cheerful, curious wife of Dr. Alfred Bellows, whose light-hearted skepticism added warmth to the series. Although she appeared in the show's first season once under another role, it was her part as Amanda from season 2 onward that made her a familiar face to millions. However, her personal life was not as smooth as her career. Her marriage to actor Mark Roberts began with hope in the late 1950s, but the pressure of being a working actress in a male-dominated industry strained them from the beginning. Henry felt torn between societal expectations of being the perfect wife and her own need for independence, performing nightly on The Red Skelton Show while fighting criticism for pursuing a career instead of motherhood. As the years passed, the marriage became increasingly fragile. When I Dream of Jeannie ended, the lack of offers plunged her into depression, leaving her marriage unable to withstand the weight of her fear that her career was slipping away. After the divorce in the 1970s, Henry tried to rebuild her life through guest roles in The Bob Newhart Show, Love, American Style, and 8 is Enough, but the pressure of surviving in Hollywood without steady work wore her down. Her financial anxiety intensified, and the sudden diagnosis of an aggressive brain tumor left her with little strength to fight back. Determined to keep working, she continued acting while hiding the progression of her illness from colleagues, pushing herself to finish performances even as her headaches worsened and her energy faded. Sadly, Emiline Henry died on October 8, 1979, at age 50 in Palm Springs, California, after a brief but devastating battle with brain cancer. She was laid to rest at Holy Cross Cemetery in Culver City. At the time of her passing, her net worth was an estimated $500,000. Hayden Rorke as Dr. Alfred Bellows. Hayden Rorke was born on October 23, 1910, in Brooklyn, New York. At 55 years old, he played Dr. Alfred Bellows, the suspicious, endlessly bewildered NASA psychiatrist determined to uncover Tony Nelson's secret in I Dream of Jeannie, 1965 to 1970. His deadpan confusion made him one of the show's most memorable characters, even as his own life was marked by battles far more serious than Jeannie's magical mischief. His long partnership with television director Eustace Addis, beginning in the early 1950s, was affectionate but fraught with its own tensions. Both men worked grueling schedules in an industry that rarely welcomed openly gay performers, forcing them to maintain privacy and endure whispered judgments that strained their home life. Sooner, the death of Addis in 1979 shattered him. After decades of companionship, Rorke suddenly found himself alone, grieving in silence while trying to continue his career. The loneliness of his final years mixed with a growing physical pain he refused to show publicly. He carried on performing in theater and television, even as multiple myeloma began quietly attacking his body. Sadly, Hayden Rorke died on August 19, 1987, at age 76, in his Toluca Lake home. He was cremated, and his ashes were kept privately by family, marking a modest farewell for a man who spent his life in the glow of Hollywood without ever truly being seen by it. His estimated net worth at the time of his death was $1.5 million, built from decades of television and stage work. Karen Sharp. As Melissa. Karen Sharp was born on September 20, 1934, in San Antonio, Texas. At 31 years old, she appeared in I Dream of Jeannie, 1965, playing Melissa, Tony Nelson's poised and determined former girlfriend who briefly complicates Jeannie's magical new world. Her appearance was small but memorable, reflecting the sophisticated charm she brought to 1950s and 1960s Hollywood. However, his personal life was full of personal problems. Her first marriage to actor Chester Marshall in 1957 hid years of emotional strain. Behind their glamorous facade, Marshall's violent temper and repeated assaults left Sharp living in fear, covering bruises while pretending to lead a happy life for the press. The abuse eventually pushed her to file for divorce, but the trauma lingered, making her wary of intimacy and deeply insecure during auditions. The tension followed her into her career. Even while earning a Golden Globe nomination for The High and the Mighty, 1954, she privately battled social anxiety and overwhelming self-doubt. After Jeannie, roles grew inconsistent as producers labeled her too pretty to be taken seriously, pushing her toward anxiety attacks that ended more than one promising opportunity. Her second marriage to legendary director Stanley Kramer in 1966 brought love but introduced new pressures. Kramer's demanding schedule often took him away for months at a time, leaving Sharp to raise their two children largely alone. The loneliness was compounded by whispers that she only succeeded because of her husband's reputation. She redirected her energy into producing with Kramer, but even then the responsibilities of motherhood, business, and supporting a high-profile filmmaker left her emotionally exhausted. After Kramer's death in 2001, she admitted that being the wife of a great director was both a privilege and a constant weight. As of 2025, Karen Sharp is 91 years old and living quietly in Los Angeles, where she remains active in maintaining the Stanley Kramer Library and supporting film preservation initiatives. She no longer acts, having retired fully in 2021, but occasionally appears at industry events honoring her late husband's legacy. Her estimated net worth of $3 million comes from decades of acting, producing, and the estate she helped manage. Vinton Hayworth, as General Winfield Schaefer. Vinton Hayworth was born on June 4, 1906, in Washington, D.C. At 62 years old, he joined I Dream of Jeannie, 1968 to 1970, playing General Winfield Schaefer, the polished, dignified officer who replaced General Peterson in the show's later seasons. His refined comedic timing and commanding presence made him a natural successor, even as his health quietly deteriorated. Behind that composed exterior, his private life was marked by quiet strain. His first marriage to Jean Hayworth, Rita Hayworth's aunt, carried the immense pressure of belonging to a powerful Hollywood dynasty. Constant comparisons to his famous relatives and the struggle to define his own identity strained the marriage until it collapsed. His second marriage to Florence Rice brought greater stability, but loneliness and insecurity continued to shadow their life together. Long working hours, frequent relocations, and the emotional burden of being viewed as the less successful Hayworth weighed heavily on their relationship, even as Florence remained loyal. Those pressures followed him into every role he accepted. Despite strong work in Hazel, Zorro, and various Alfred Hitchcock television dramas, Hollywood repeatedly relegated him to supporting parts. The pattern deepened his anxiety and fueled a growing fear of professional stagnation. Meanwhile, a hereditary heart condition haunted him for decades. By the time he appeared in I Dream of Jeannie, the long hours and on-set expectations worsened his fragile health. Sadly, Vinton Hayworth died on May 21, 1970, at age 63 in Van Nuys, California, from a sudden heart attack. His episodes continued airing after his death, leaving audiences stunned to see him on screen even as news of his passing spread. His estimated net worth at the time of his death was $1 million, modest, but earned through decades of steady, dedicated work. Barton MacLane as General Martin Peterson. Barton MacLane was born on December 25, 1902, in Columbia, South Carolina. At 63 years old, he appeared in I Dream of Jeannie, 1965 to 1966, playing General Martin Peterson, the stern, no-nonsense Air Force commander whose booming authority grounded NASA's chaos in the show's early seasons. His military presence came naturally, but off-screen, his life was far less controlled. His first marriage to Sheila MacLaine crumbled under the weight of touring schedules, studio demands, and MacLane's deepening alcoholism, and worsened as he struggled to maintain his tough guy persona. Arguments grew violent, absences stretched longer, and the emotional toll fractured their marriage completely. His second marriage to Rosemary MacLaine endured until his death, yet it too carried heavy scars. The financial strain of his drinking, the insecurity of living off mostly supporting roles, and the haunting fear of fading relevance created a tense, fragile home. When alcohol cost him major contracts in the 1950s, humiliation followed him through the front door, where guilt and anger often erupted into domestic turmoil. These personal battles soon began to shape his professional life. Although he wrote the acclaimed play Rendezvous and co-wrote The Hasty Heart, earning near Oscar recognition, his addiction robbed him of leading roles and stable studio deals. He found himself accepting smaller parts simply to keep his family afloat. By the time he joined I Dream of Jeannie, years of chain smoking and stress had already ravaged his body. Lung cancer appeared suddenly, spreading quickly and leaving him in constant pain. Sadly, Barton MacLane died on January 1, 1969, at age 66 in Santa Monica, California, just a week after his birthday. He was buried at Valhalla Memorial Park Cemetery, leaving behind a grieving wife, an adopted daughter, and a legacy spanning more than 200 films. At the time of his passing, his net worth was estimated at $2 million. Earned through relentless work that came at a cost no paycheck could ever repay. Abraham Sofaer as Haji. Abraham Sofaer was born on October 1, 1896 in Rangoon, Burma, now Yangon, Myanmar. At 71 years old, he appeared in I Dream of Jeannie in 1967, playing Haji, the wise, mystical master of all genies whose authority even Jeannie feared. His deep voice and regal presence made the character unforgettable, marking one of the most memorable late-career roles of his long life on stage and screen. But behind that calm wisdom on screen was a man carrying decades of quiet strain. His marriage to Psyche Christian was stable but far from easy. Raising 6 children while constantly migrating between Burma, London, and finally Hollywood placed immense pressure on their home life. Wartime displacement forced the family to rebuild their world more than once, leaving emotional scars and long periods of separation. At that time, as offers dwindled, the sting of being overlooked despite acclaimed performances in Captain's Courageous and Star Trek deepened the tension he fought to hide. As the years passed, the weight only grew heavier. He pushed forward, taking every role he could to support his large family. Even as age slowed him, he kept working, using the grind of the industry as a shield against financial insecurity rooted in wartime hardship. His appearance as Haji came during a period when he was physically tired but determined to prove his worth before time ran out. Ultimately, Abraham Sofayer died on January 21, 1988, at age 91 in Woodland Hills, California, from congestive heart failure. He passed at the Motion Picture and Television Country House, carrying the dignity of a man who survived war, prejudice, and a lifetime of reinvention. At the time of his death, his net worth was estimated at $800,000. Philip Ober as General Wingard Stone. Philip Ober was born on March 23, 1902, in Fort Payne, Alabama. At 63 years old, he appeared in I Dream of Jeannie, 1965, as General Wingard Stone, the commanding but short-tempered military officer whose stern presence helped shape the show's earliest episodes. Yet the authority he projected on screen masked a life shaken by turbulence at home. His marriage to actress Vivian Vance, beginning in 1941, was deeply troubled. Behind the polished Hollywood veneer, their relationship was marked by physical violence, emotional cruelty, and constant volatility. Ober's jealousy over Vance's rising fame on I Love Lucy worsened his temper, turning their home into a battleground that left lasting scars. Their divorce in 1959 left him publicly humiliated and privately broken, emotional wounds he carried into his second marriage to Jane Westover. Though calmer, that relationship was overshadowed by the guilt and unresolved trauma he brought with him. And those fractures soon spilled into his career. Hollywood's darker corners restricted him to supporting roles just as he was hitting his stride. Even though he delivered powerful performances in From Here to Eternity and Hitchcock's North by Northwest, the stress of his personal life and the bitterness of past mistakes always seemed to follow him. His eventual retreat into U.S. diplomatic service in Mexico was not only a career shift, it was an escape from a past he never fully reconciled with. Sadly, Philip Ober died on September 13, 1982, at age 80, officially from heart failure, though hospital records confirm lung cancer as the true cause. He passed in Mexico City after years of worsening health linked to smoking and prolonged stress. His estimated net worth at the time of his death was $1.2 million. Florence Sundstrom as Jeannie's mother. Florence Sundstrom was born on February 9, 1918, in New York City. At 47 years old, she appeared in I Dream of Jeannie, 1965, playing Jeannie's mother, the sharp-tongued, overprotective matriarch whose magical threats and comedic scolding added chaos to Jeannie's world. Though her role was brief, her timing and theatrical flair came from a lifetime spent on the stage. But behind the confidence of a seasoned stage actress was a woman fighting quieter struggles. Her marriage to baritone Ronald Graham began with promise, but was tested almost immediately by demanding rehearsal schedules, constant travel, and the emotional pressure of working in the unpredictable world of theater. When Graham died suddenly in 1950 at just 38, Sundstrom was left shattered. The abrupt shift from celebrated Broadway character actress to sidelined TV performer deepened the feeling that Hollywood valued her talent less than the stage once did. Those losses shaped the second half of her life. As major roles became scarce, Sundstrom accepted smaller television and film appearances simply to remain afloat, from The Rose Tattoo to Bachelor in Paradise. Each project kept her visible, but the pressure of being repeatedly cast aside for younger actresses created a constant undercurrent of insecurity. In the end, time simply took its course. Florence Sundstrom died on June 25, 2001, at age 83 in Los Angeles, her passing attributed to age-related causes. She left behind no children, no dramatic headlines, only a quiet legacy in theater history and a modest net worth of roughly $400,000, built from decades of steady, often underappreciated work. J. Pat O'Malley as Mr. Wheeler. J. Pat O'Malley was born on March 15, 1901, in Burnley, England. At 64 years old, he appeared in I Dream of Jeannie, 1965, playing Mr. Wheeler, the cheerful, steady neighbor whose warm presence added a familiar charm to the show's light-hearted world. His gentle voice and friendly manner were trademarks he had carried throughout his long career. Yet beyond that comforting exterior was a man who endured decades of displacement and pressure. His marriage to Margaret Mullen lasted nearly 50 years, but it weathered multiple storms, from relocating to America during World War II to the financial uncertainty of reinventing himself in a new entertainment industry far from home. Though he found success as a voice actor in classics like Disney's Alice in Wonderland and 101 Dalmatians, the constant need to accept every job offered left little space for rest or emotional release. As time went on, the toll became increasingly visible. Long recording sessions exhausted his voice, and the endless cycle of theater, radio, and television work stretched him thin. Even with 2 children at home, his career demands often kept him away for weeks at a time, creating an unspoken distance within the family. When bone cancer struck late in life, it progressed quickly and brutally. His final chapter was dignified but heartbreaking. J. Pat O'Malley died on February 27, 1985, at age 83, his body weakened by cancer after decades of relentless work. He was survived by his wife and children, leaving behind a warm and gentle legacy cherished by generations of children who grew up with his Disney characters. At the time of his passing, his net worth was estimated at $1 million, earned not through fame, but through a lifetime of tireless dedication to his craft. So after seeing where their lives ended up, which cast member shocked you the most? The tragedy, the transformation, or the unexpected success? Tell us in the comments, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more stories hidden behind Hollywood's brightest screens.